It was a quiet Thursday afternoon when she decided to return home early. The sky was still bright, and she was looking forward to resting her feet after spending the morning with her friend. As she turned into her driveway, something felt different. The gate was wide open, and a truck she didn't recognize was parked outside. Her heart skipped. Maybe someone's doing work next door, she thought. But when she opened her front door, she heard noises coming from upstairs, hammering, voices, and the sound of furniture being dragged. She froze. "This can't be right," she whispered. No one was supposed to be home. Slowly, she climbed the stairs, one hand holding the railing. Her bedroom door was half open. Through the crack, she saw two men, strangers, wearing dusty clothes, measuring the wall near her wardrobe. One of them turned and saw her. His expression changed quickly, surprise flashing across his face. "Oh, ma'am, we didn't expect you back so soon," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "What are you doing in my room?" she asked, her voice trembling. Before either man could answer, her son's wife appeared behind them, smiling nervously. "Oh, don't worry. We're just doing some renovations before we move in," she said cheerfully, as if nothing was wrong. "We thought we'd surprise you," the old woman blinked. "Renovations? Without asking me?" Her daughter-in-law laughed softly. "It's just a small change, Mom. You'll love it." But something felt off. The room looked different already. Drawers half open, her husband's photo frame lying face down. And when she glanced at the table, she noticed her jewelry box was missing. That night, the house didn't feel like home anymore. She tried to sleep, but the sound of footsteps and faint whispers kept her awake. Around midnight, she heard someone quietly walking in the hallway. She peeked out of her room and saw one of the workers coming out of her bedroom, holding a small black bag. She recognized it immediately. It was her husband's old leather bag, the one that held his watch and letters. Her chest tightened. She wanted to shout, but something in the man's cold expression made her step back quietly and close her door. The next morning, she came downstairs early. Her son's wife was already there, acting as if nothing happened. "Good morning? Did you sleep well?" she asked. The older woman nodded slowly, pretending to smile. But her eyes stayed sharp. She noticed the black bag was gone. She poured herself some tea, her hands shaking slightly. Something was terribly wrong, and she knew she had to find out what was really happening in her own house. The next few days felt strange in the house. The older woman tried to follow her usual routine. She made tea in the morning, watered the plants, wiped the dining table. But nothing felt normal anymore. Everywhere she turned, there were new faces, new tools, boxes on the floor, and dust on her memories. The workers moved in and out as if the house already belonged to them. They carried wooden boards upstairs, rolled up carpets, and brought in strange metal cases she had never seen before. Every time she asked what they were doing, she got the same answer. "Just some changes, ma'am. You'll like it when it's done," one of them would say. But she didn't like any of it. One afternoon, she gathered her courage and went to her son's wife, who was busy looking at plans on her phone. "Can we talk?" the older woman asked quietly. Her daughter-in-law glanced up, still half focused on the screen. "Sure, Mom, what's wrong?" "I want to know exactly what these men are doing in my room. I never agreed to renovations. This is my house. Your father-in-law and I built this life here. Why is everything suddenly changing?" The younger woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Mom, you're overthinking. We're just trying to make the house more modern. When we move in, we'll all live together. Isn't that what you always wanted? Family under one roof?" The old woman looked at her carefully. "Yes, I want family. But I also want honesty. Why did that man have your father-in-law's bag last night? Where is it now?" For a moment, the younger woman's face went stiff. Her fingers tightened around her phone. Then she forced another smile. "Oh, that? I told them to clean and move some of your husband's old things so they don't get damaged. The bag is safe. Don't worry, I'll put everything back later." The explanation felt thin, like a sheet trying to cover a broken window. Light still came through. "But you should have asked me," the older woman said. "Those things mean a lot to me." "Yes, of course." "I'm sorry," her daughter-in-law said quickly. "Please trust me. You'll see everything will be better when it's finished. Trust." It was such a heavy word now. That evening her son came by. He greeted his mother with a quick hug, kissed her cheek, but there was a distance in his eyes she had never seen before. "You look tired," he said. "Are the workers bothering you?" She shook her head slowly. "I'm not tired from them. I'm tired from not knowing what's happening in my own house." He sighed. "Mom, we're just trying to help. The house is old. We want to make sure it's safe and comfortable. Let us handle it, okay?" She studied his face. He looked away too quickly, as if afraid she'd read something in his eyes. "Why do I feel like you're hiding something from me?" she asked softly. "Nothing to hide," he replied, but his voice dropped a little. "Please, just let us do this." "You'll thank us later." The conversation ended there. But her doubts did not. Over the next 2 days, she noticed small changes that made her even more uneasy. A new lock appeared on the door under the staircase. A door that had never needed a lock in all the years she had lived there. When she reached for it one morning, she found it firmly shut. "Why is this locked?" she asked one of the workers. "Safety, ma'am," he said quickly. "There are tools inside. We don't want anyone to get hurt." But she had been opening that door for years without trouble. It was where she kept old blankets and boxes of books. Now, suddenly, it was unsafe. Another evening, she saw her daughter-in-law handing a thick envelope to one of the workers by the kitchen door. When they noticed her in the hallway, the envelope disappeared into a toolbox, and the conversation stopped. She pretended she hadn't seen anything, but her mind kept replaying the moment. Something was very wrong. One night, after everyone went to bed and the house grew quiet, she sat on the edge of her mattress listening. The faint sound of the street, a dog barking in the distance, the ticking of the wall clock. Then, under all of that, she heard a whisper. Not from outside, from inside the house. She moved slowly to her bedroom door and opened it a little. Light flickered from downstairs. She could hear low voices coming from the living room. She stepped into the hallway and walked as softly as she could. At the top of the stairs, she paused and looked down. Her daughter-in-law stood near the front door with one of the workers, speaking in a low, urgent tone. On the table beside them lay a small black device and a few wires. The worker picked up the device and slipped it into his pocket. "We have to finish everything before tomorrow morning," the younger woman whispered. "They'll be here early. We can't keep anything in this house after that." The older woman's breath caught in her throat. Who would be here in the morning? And why couldn't anything stay in the house? She stepped back, afraid they would look up and see her. Her heart pounded hard in her chest. Quietly, she returned to her room and closed the door. For a long time, she sat on the bed staring at the wardrobe. Her home, which once felt safe and full of memories, now felt like a place she didn't recognize. The next day, when the workers went out for lunch, she finally gathered enough courage to search her room properly. She checked the drawers, the wardrobe, under the bed. Some of her clothes had been moved, and a few boxes were not where she left them. But what truly caught her eye was something new. Near the corner of the ceiling, close to the curtain rod, she noticed a tiny, dark circle that hadn't been there before. She pulled a chair from her dressing table, climbed up slowly and looked closer. It was a small lens, barely bigger than a button. Her hands shook as she reached for it. She unscrewed it gently and held it in her palm. It was a camera. They were recording her in her own bedroom. She stepped down from the chair, her legs weak. She sat on the edge of the bed, the little camera lying on her open hand. This wasn't a simple renovation. It wasn't a surprise or a gift. Something secret, something serious was happening in her home. She looked at the device and whispered, "What are you doing to me?" And why? For the first time, the idea entered her mind that what was happening in her house might not only be wrong, it might be illegal. And tomorrow morning, someone important was coming. The small camera lay hidden inside her wardrobe now, wrapped in an old scarf. The older woman had no idea what to do with it. Every time she opened the wardrobe door and saw the scarf, her chest tightened. Someone had watched her in her own room. Someone she lived with. Someone she trusted. All day she moved slowly through the house, pretending everything was normal. She poured tea, cooked rice, answered simple questions from the workers. But inside, her thoughts were loud and restless. Why did they put a camera in my room? What are they planning to do tomorrow morning? Am I safe here? When evening came, her son stopped by again. He entered with his usual quick smile, kissed her cheek, and sat at the table as if nothing unusual was happening. "How are you, Mom?" he asked, taking off his jacket. "I am fine," she answered. "But I have a question." He looked up, his eyebrows raised. "What is it?" She studied his face. She wanted to ask about the camera, about the locked door, about the strange packages. But when she opened her mouth, the words stuck in her throat. "You are really moving in soon?" she asked instead. "Of course," he replied. "We'll all live together. It will be good for you. You won't be alone." His voice sounded caring, but there was still that same distance in his eyes, like he was telling a story he had practiced. "And all these changes," she continued carefully, "they are really just for the house?" He laughed lightly. "What else would they be for?" Before she could answer, his phone rang. He checked the screen, his face tightening for a second. "I have to take this," he said, standing up and walking away toward the hallway. She watched him disappear around the corner. His voice dropped to a low whisper. She couldn't hear the words, but she could feel the tension. Her heart sank. She realized something painful. She was afraid of the truth. Afraid that if she pushed too hard, she might find out her own son was involved in something dark. Later that night, the house seemed unusually busy. The workers stayed longer than usual. They moved in and out of the hallway carrying boxes and bags instead of tools. The older woman sat silently in the living room, pretending to watch television, her eyes following every movement. Her daughter-in-law kept checking the time on her phone, whispering to one of the men and pointing toward the back of the house. Once the older woman heard the younger woman say, "Everything has to be in the basement. Nothing can stay upstairs. Basement?" The word made her stomach twist. That space had always just been a storage area for old chairs, empty suitcases, and broken fans. Now it seemed to be something more. Around 10 at night, the workers finally left through the back door. Her son told his mother he had to run a quick errand and would be back later. He kissed her on the forehead and hurried out. The house grew quiet. Only the older woman and her daughter-in-law remained. "I'm going to bed early," the younger woman said, forcing a smile. "Big day tomorrow. Try to get some rest, okay?" The older woman nodded, watching her disappear up the stairs. But rest was the last thing on her mind. Hours passed. The clock in the hallway ticked slowly. The street outside became silent. The older woman lay in her bed, eyes open, listening. Around midnight, she heard it. The soft creak of the back door. She sat up, her heart pounding. Footsteps moved through the hallway, heavy but trying to be quiet. She slipped out of bed, put on her slippers, and opened her bedroom door a crack. From the top of the stairs, she could see the faint glow of a small flashlight moving toward the back of the house. It was her son. He was not alone. One of the workers walked behind him, carrying something large and wrapped in a dark cloth. They moved together toward the door that led to the basement. The older woman held her breath as she watched her son take a key from his pocket and unlock the door under the staircase. The worker stepped in first, then her son followed, closing the door softly behind them. The sound of their footsteps echoed faintly from below. Her hands trembled. This was it. Whatever secret was hiding in her house was down there. For a long moment, she stood in the hallway, frozen. Part of her wanted to run back to her room, cover her ears, and pretend she had seen nothing. But another part, stronger now, whispered that she needed to know the truth. She walked down the stairs slowly, her heart beating so loudly she was sure they could hear it. When she reached the basement door, she stopped and pressed her ear against it. She could hear them talking. "We have to move these out as soon as they arrive tomorrow," the worker said. "We can't keep anything in this house. It's safe here for now," her son replied. "Nobody suspects her. She thinks this is just renovation." Her legs almost gave way. They were talking about her. "Don't worry," the worker added. "By tomorrow afternoon, the house will be clean. No one will know we used this place." Clean. Used. The words made her feel sick. She waited until their voices grew faint. Then she stepped back. Her hands were shaking so badly she could hardly hold the doorknob. For a moment she considered turning it and walking down, but fear stopped her. What if they found her there? What if they became angry? What if she was not safe anymore in her own home? She hurried back to her room and sat on the bed, pressing her hands to her face. Her chest was tight, her breathing shaky. It felt like the walls were closing in. Her son was using her house. Not for simple renovations, not for a surprise, for something secret, something that needed to be hidden. In that moment, a heavy truth settled on her. The people she loved were not just lying to her. They might be doing something against the law. An hour later, when the house grew quiet again, she wiped her tears and made a decision. She could not go to sleep pretending she knew nothing. She needed to see at least once what they had hidden below. With slow steps, she left her room again, making sure the floorboards did not creak. The hallway was dark, but she knew every corner of this house. She had lived here for years. She didn't need a light. She reached the basement door and touched the handle. To her surprise, it was not locked this time. Maybe in their hurry, they had forgotten. She opened the door just enough to slip through and felt for the light switch on the wall. Her fingers found it and she hesitated. What if this changes everything? She thought. Then she took a deep breath and turned on the light. The basement, once filled with old furniture and boxes, now looked like a storage room from another world. Neatly stacked on the floor were several large bags and sealed boxes. Some were marked with codes and numbers she didn't understand. Others had no labels at all. She stepped closer and carefully opened one of the smaller boxes. Inside, she saw rows of expensive-looking electronic devices still in their packaging, far too many for any normal family. Another bag she opened contained rolled-up documents and small packets wrapped in dark plastic. She didn't know exactly what these things were, but she knew one thing with painful clarity. They did not belong in her home. Her knees felt weak. She grabbed a nearby chair and sat down, pressing a hand to her chest. Her son, her own child, her daughter-in-law. They were using her house as a hiding place, a cover. For the first time, a frightening thought crossed her mind. If the police ever discovered this, they wouldn't just question her son or his wife, they would question her too. She stood there in the bright basement, surrounded by things that did not belong to her, and realized she had a choice to make: stay silent and protect her family's secret, or tell someone the truth and risk losing them forever. The basement light was still on when she finally went back to bed. Her heart felt heavy, like a stone inside her chest. She lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the boxes, the bags, the strange devices. She saw her son's face, heard his voice saying, "Nobody suspects her." They were using her name, her house, her good image to hide their secret. As the night slowly faded into morning, she still had not made a decision. Her mind bounced between two painful thoughts. If I say nothing, I am part of this. If I say something, I might lose my family. The sky outside began to brighten. Birds started to sing. Somewhere down the street, a motorcycle passed by. The world was waking up like it always did, but inside her, everything felt different. She sat up slowly, her body tired from a night without sleep. She went to the bathroom, washed her face, and looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes were swollen. She looked older than ever. "How did we get here?" she whispered to herself. She walked downstairs to the kitchen and started making tea, more out of habit than desire. Her hands shook as she moved the cups, the sugar, the kettle. She tried to breathe slowly, trying to calm herself. Today, she told herself, I will decide what to do. But before she could even finish that thought, there was a sudden loud sound. Knock, knock, knock. It wasn't a gentle knock. It was firm and clear, echoing through the house. She froze, the spoon in her hand still touching the cup. Again, knock, knock, knock. Her heart began to race. She wiped her hands on her dress and walked toward the front door, each step feeling heavy. When she opened the door, the sight made her stomach drop. 2 police officers stood on her doorstep. One was a woman with a serious but calm face, holding a notebook. The other was a tall man, wearing a vest with a small badge. Behind them, she could see a police car parked outside the gate. "Good morning, ma'am," the woman officer said. "Are you the owner of this house?" The older woman's throat felt dry. "Yes," she answered softly. "I'm Officer Rana, and this is Officer Imran," the woman said. "We need to speak with you." "May we come in?" For a moment, the older woman thought about closing the door and pretending this was a mistake. But her legs moved on their own and she stepped aside. "Yes, come in," she said. They entered the living room and looked around quickly. Their eyes scanned the floors, the walls, the staircase. They were not just visiting. They were here with purpose. "Ma'am," Officer Rana said gently, "we're investigating a group of people involved in illegal activities. We have reason to believe this house has been used to store some of their items." The older woman's hands started to tremble again. Her knees felt weak. She slowly sat down on the sofa. I don't understand," she whispered, though deep inside she did. "Over the past weeks, we have been watching some people connected to this area," the officer continued. "We have seen delivery trucks and certain workers come to this house many times. We also know some of them have a record." The older woman swallowed hard. Her son, the workers, her daughter-in-law. "We're not here to attack you," Officer Rana said softly, noticing the fear in her face. "We just need the truth. Are there any boxes, bags, or items in this house that don't belong to you?" The room felt very quiet. The tick of the clock on the wall suddenly sounded loud. The older woman looked at her hands. For a moment she imagined lying. She imagined saying, "No, there's nothing here," and sending them away. She imagined protecting her son, pretending she knew nothing. But then she remembered the camera in her bedroom. She remembered the words in the basement. Nobody suspects her. She looked up slowly, her eyes full of tears. "There are things in the basement," she said, her voice shaking. "They are not mine. I did not put them there. I found them last night." The officers exchanged a quick look. "Who brought them here, ma'am?" Officer Imran asked. She hesitated, her heart breaking as she spoke. "My son, and some workers, and his wife. They said it was all for renovation. But it is not. I know it is not." The truth once spoken felt both painful and somehow lighter, like a heavy weight leaving her chest and falling to the floor. "Thank you for being honest," Officer Rana said gently. "Can you please stay here while we check the basement?" The older woman nodded weakly. The officers called for support on their radio. Within minutes, more people arrived at the house. They moved quickly but respectfully, some heading straight for the basement, others checking the rooms. She sat on the sofa, numb, while they went through the house that used to be quiet and safe. After a while, she heard voices from the basement. "We found them," someone called out. "Bags, devices, documents. It's all here." Her eyes filled with tears. Just then, the front door opened again. Her son stepped inside, holding his phone. His expression relaxed at first. But when he saw the uniforms, the badges, the open basement door, his face went pale. "Mom, what's happening?" he asked, his voice tense. The officers turned toward him. "Sir, are you the son?" Officer Rana asked. He nodded slowly, his eyes jumping from his mother to the police, then to the hallway. "We need to talk to you," she said calmly. "We have found items in this house connected to our investigation. We have been watching this address for some time." His breathing grew faster. "This is a mistake," he said quickly. "You can't just come into our house." "Your mother has given us permission," the officer replied. "And we have enough evidence to be here." He turned to his mother, his eyes wide with shock and hurt. "Mom, what did you do?" Her lips trembled. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I told them the truth," she finally whispered. "I had to." He shook his head, anger and fear mixing on his face. "You don't understand," he said. "I was just trying to—" Officer Imran stepped forward. "Sir, I'm afraid we'll need you to come with us for questioning." In that moment, the older woman felt her heart break in a way she had never known before. She watched as they spoke to her son, as they explained his rights, as they prepared to take him away, at least for now. Her daughter-in-law, who had come down the stairs quietly, stood frozen on the last step, her face full of guilt and panic. Another officer soon guided her aside to talk separately. The house, once full of workers and noise, was now filled with police and silence. As her son was led toward the door, he turned one last time to look at his mother. There was anger in his eyes, but also something else. A deep, painful disappointment. "You chose them over your own family," he said softly. His words cut into her like a knife. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered back, almost too quietly to hear. "I chose the truth." The door closed behind him. She stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by officers, boxes being carried out, and papers being photographed, and for the first time, she truly felt alone in her own house. The house was quiet again. Days turned into weeks, and weeks slowly turned into months. The workers were gone. The boxes and hidden items were gone. The police visits became less frequent. Neighbors who had first watched with wide eyes and whispered questions slowly returned to their normal lives. But inside the house, nothing felt truly normal. The older woman moved through the rooms more slowly now. Every corner reminded her of something. Her husband's laughter long ago, her son's childhood, her daughter-in-law smiling in family photos, plans for renovations that turned out to be something else entirely. The silence was heavy, but it was also honest. No more secrets. No more lies, just her and the truth. Some nights she sat alone at the dining table with a cup of tea, staring at the empty chair where her son used to sit. Memories would come back in small waves. His first day of school, his loud teenage arguments, the way he used to hug her when life went wrong. How did we reach this point? She would think. Where did I lose him? But deep down, she knew it wasn't just one moment. It was many small choices, many quiet roads, many silent pains that had led them all here. One afternoon, months after the day the police came, the telephone rang. She answered with her usual soft, "Hello? Am I speaking to his mother?" A gentle voice said on the other end. It was someone from the authorities. They often called her to update her on the case, on court dates, on formal things she barely understood but listened to politely. "Yes, this is her," she replied. "We just wanted to let you know," the person said slowly. "Your son has asked if you could visit him. Only if you feel ready." Her hand tightened around the phone. "Visit him." She thanked the caller and hung up, then sat in the chair for a long time, staring at the wall. Was she ready? Part of her felt angry still. Part of her felt guilty. Part of her felt empty. But under all of that, there was a feeling she knew very well. Love. Not a love that agreed with what he had done. Not a love that could erase the pain or the mistakes, but a love that still remembered the boy who used to hold her hand when crossing the street. That evening, she packed a small bag with a bottle of water, some biscuits, and a shawl. The next morning, she dressed carefully in a simple, clean outfit and took a ride to the place where her son was being held. Her heart pounded the whole way. The room they met in was plain. White walls, metal chairs, a table between them. A guard stood at the back, watching quietly. When her son walked in, he looked different. His shoulders were not as straight. His face looked older, tired. There were dark circles under his eyes. But his eyes were still his, soft, deep, familiar. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he sat down slowly, and she did too. "Mom," he said, his voice low. She looked at him quietly. "How are you?" she asked. He let out a short, sad laugh. "Not great," he admitted, "but I've been thinking about you. A lot." She held her hands together on the table. "I've been thinking about you too," she said softly. There was a long pause. "I was angry with you," he said at last. "For telling the police, for not protecting me," she nodded slowly. "I know, but—" He looked down at his hands. "I've had time to think. And I know I was wrong. I knew what I was doing. I brought those things into your house. I used your name. I told myself it was just temporary, that I was doing it for money, for a better life. But I was lying to myself and to you." His voice shook a little. "I don't know if you can ever forgive me," he said quietly. "But I'm sorry." "Mom?" I really am. Tears filled her eyes as she listened. She reached across the table and gently placed her hand over his. For a moment, he seemed surprised. Then he relaxed, his fingers closing around hers. I am hurt, she said honestly. Very hurt. Not only because you broke the law, but because you didn't trust me enough to tell me you were in trouble. You tried to carry everything alone, and then you used my house, my name, to hide it. He lowered his head, shame written all over his face. But, she continued, her voice soft but steady, you are my child. I cannot pretend you do not exist. I cannot stop loving you. What you did was wrong, very wrong, but you are still my son. He looked up, eyes wet. So you don't hate me? She shook her head slowly. No, I don't hate you. I hate what you did. I hate the choices you made. But I don't hate you. A tear rolled down his cheek. He quickly wiped it away, trying to stay strong. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Maybe not, she said gently, but you still have me. They sat there like that for a while, holding hands in a quiet room. Two people trying to rebuild something that had broken. No perfect words, no magic solution. Just a small, honest moment. In the months that followed, she visited him whenever she could. Sometimes they talked about what happened. Sometimes they talked about simple things, the weather, memories from his childhood, what she cooked that week. It hurt, but it also healed. At home, she slowly began to fix the house properly. The cameras were gone. The basement was cleared. She invited a trusted local carpenter to repair the damaged walls, to repaint the rooms. She didn't rush. She took her time, choosing gentle colors, rearranging furniture in ways that made the house feel new, but still hers. One day, as she was cleaning the shelves, she found her late husband's bag again. The police had returned it after the case. She opened it slowly and took out the old watch and letters. She held the watch in her hand and smiled sadly. I did what I could, she whispered, as if speaking to her husband. Our boy made mistakes, big ones, but I told the truth. I hope you would understand. She placed the watch back, closed the bag, and put it somewhere safe. As time went on, she found a quiet strength inside herself that she didn't know she had. She began to talk more openly with a few trusted neighbors, not about all the details, but about her feelings. She found comfort in simple routines, watering plants in the morning, making food to share with the children next door, visiting the old market where she used to go with her husband. She learned something important. Life doesn't always go the way we dream. Sometimes the people we love hurt us deeply, but we still have a choice. A choice to be honest. A choice to protect what is right. A choice to forgive, even if we can't forget. One evening, she sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the sun go down. The sky was painted with soft colors, orange, pink, and gold. Her house was calm. No strange footsteps, no hidden bags, no whispers, just the sound of her own breathing, and the distant laughter of children playing outside. She thought about everything that had happened. The workers in her room, the hidden camera, the basement full of secrets, the knock of the police, her son's hurt eyes, his apology, her tears. And then she thought about tomorrow. Tomorrow she would visit him again. She would bring him homemade sweets. They would talk. Maybe they would laugh a little. Maybe they would cry, but they would keep going. Because this wasn't just a story about crime. It was also a story about courage. About telling the truth when it's hardest, about loving someone even when they've fallen. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Her life was not perfect. It was not easy, but it was real. And slowly, quietly, she was beginning again.